Welcome back to the Glassix Spotlight, where today we're delving into the world of conversational AI and its transformative impact on customer experience with a seasoned expert, Cathal McCarthy. As a GTM executive leader with a formidable track record at companies like Apple, eBay, and PwC, Cathal has been at the forefront of digital transformation and customer engagement across the globe. His strategic acumen in product launch, customer success management, and top of funnel lead generation have propelled businesses to new heights, enhancing client satisfaction and retention significantly. Cahal's innovative approaches to revamping GTM functions and developing enterprise sales forces have not only accelerated business growth, but have also set new benchmarks in leveraging technology to improve customer interactions. His work ensures that companies are not just responding to market needs, but are steps ahead in shaping the future of customer engagement. Cahal, it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Hi, Ran. Thank you for that very nice, warm introduction. It's great to meet you.
Amazing. Well, before we explore the journeys of conversational AI and its impact, could you share any recent initiatives or project that have excited you lately?
Oh my God, there's so many that we've been involved with, and the excitement really comes from any project when you see something live in the market, and it's really having an impact on a customer in the intended way, or maybe going even beyond the intended way that a client expected. For the past year or so, I've been involved with a company down in Australia called Phaeton, and we're doing something really exciting from a project level, and that's launching a digital carbon credit exchange. And that market is based on blockchain, which is pretty awesome because we bring the ledger capability to this market, which has been pretty much fractured. So we clean up so many things that have been wrong in that market that I think customers are really going to benefit from. Whether that's a digital certificate, market pricing, transparency, bringing carbon credit to both the retail and the wholesale market, and then just creates liquidity. So super excited about that, and that's where I've spent most of my time.
Wow, I know it's a big pain, and I'm so glad to meet someone that is in the process of resolving it. That's amazing.
Yeah, we're looking forward to technology launch, product on the shelf, on the digital shelf. We're hoping to be live in hopefully the next couple of weeks. So super
Wow.
excited.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. For our listeners, today's episode called The Power of Conversational AI and Customer Experience, a talk with Cathal McCarthy. So, Cathal, I want to get started with our first question. With your broad expertise in leading GTM strategies at notable companies like Apple and eBay, you have a deep understanding of customer success and engagement. Could you discuss how integrating conversational AI has transformed customer interactions and business outcomes in your experience?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I would say conversational AI is, I think, perhaps the most daring and maybe also the most rewarding of AI deployments. And the reason I say that is you very often you place this at the front end of the customer experience, that first touch that people have with your brand, your company, or your people. And traditionally, when people make this automation human trade off, they've looked at things from a very simple level and avoided the complex problems. And conversational AI really allows you to step deeper into the customer journey. So I would say, people traditionally looked at this in a way across three dimensions, scalability, quality, and cost. And automation typically came with, high scalability, whereas humans were limited by, 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day, 60 minutes in an hour. Quality was pretty limited on the automation side, but on the human being side, with amazing training, knowledge management systems, great content from your marketing team, it was pretty high. But then on the cost side, automation could be moderate to low, whereas human beings tend to be a little bit expensive. And people, push towards offshoring and nearshoring to manage that cost experience. So let's just go back to what do I think about that front end experience? Success rates of conversational AI can be as high as 83%, which sounds really, really good. But when you think about that in a different way, that means 1 in 5 customers fail. So the trick is, how do you actually get that 83% up into the high 90s? And Rana, as I mentioned earlier, this is the first touch, the first experience with the brand. And when done right, like what you'll find with conversational AI, it's just so much better than a traditional touch tone or a dumb IVR or whatever people may have put it up front in the experience. Now, if you think about outcomes, and really that was, I think, the core of your question, how did it change outcomes? You really have to find a partner, unless you built it yourself, which many companies choose to do, and they do that really, really well. But if you choose a partner to do this work on your behalf, you know, choosing the right KPI to measure success is absolutely critical. But maybe you could create a pricing structure that is outcome based. So you've got the partner, the company in service to the customer, fully aligned. So that's how I think about this. I think that the results are out there. Interactions produced an amazing report recently. It's on LinkedIn for those who may want to take a look. And when you stare at outcomes, you can really put them into maybe 3 or 4 buckets. People will obviously chase better net promoter scores or NPS. Labor savings is huge. People started onshore, they went near shore, then offshore. So the ability to find labor cost savings is either through greater productivity, because there is no new Philippines offshore option out there. And then obviously there's things like speed to market. So think about way back 4 years ago, 5 years ago, we had COVID and the government wanted to distribute 300 million, the government of the USA, sorry, kits to the entire population. How do you build an ordering system to support that type of experience in a rapid, quick time without maybe hiring 25, 30,000 people? So really, speed to market is a huge opportunity and a great outcome for things that require urgency. And we might talk a little bit later about the utility business and how that shows up. And then I would say the fourth outcome is really speed to value. How do you improve the proficiency? How do you improve the routing? How do you get your best customer to your best person to be able to serve them in a way that they hope to be served? So I don't know. How does that sound to you, Rand?
First of all, I think that I couldn't find a better answer to that question elsewhere online. So thank you for that. And I think that I love your 3 pillars on conversational AI and its impact on businesses. The one thing that I'm seeing from my experience with our clients, and we serve almost 1,000 companies right now, is first of all, a lot of companies, and I talk about mid-size and even enterprises and some different verticals, are like they don't understand first of all that it requires a lot of resources. Like, I know I loved your point about saying that a lot of companies are right now building their own in-house. It's true and it's amazing, but you really need to be prepared for that, you know. I don't think that a lot of aspects are being taken into considerations by different companies. So I'm not saying they're jumping um, too early or they're just not prepared enough, but I'm just saying that a lot of aspects are being, just overlooked or not even being heard when taking decisions to deploy conversational AI in organizations.
I
Um,
couldn't agree. I couldn't agree with you more. When I think about deploying conversational AI, and the first deployment I did was, over a decade ago. So there's a decade of learning, a decade of maybe some scars. But I always reminded myself, what are we really doing here? And for me, it's really a decision to place something between your company and your customer that represents your company and your brand. Like that's really what you're doing. And you're not really deploying a technology. You are, and that requires resources. It requires dedicated resources. So there is a technology, but I think you're making a proximity decision,
Yeah,
which truly informs engagement and enablement levels. What are the services you want to build on top of this that enables the customer, perhaps gives them more control over their experience, and really drives engagement? You bring up an interesting point on build versus buy. There's some very proud IS&T organizations who really want to build, and they've done amazing work. But I always remind people new technologies are pilots for enterprises. They're not pilots for your customers.
so true.
And, and when you think about that, I always say, well, how can I get the greatest learnings from the greatest number of businesses who've maybe been at this for a decade plus? And how do I bring that to my client base today? So I move from that 1 in 5 failure rate to maybe 3 in 100, or whatever the number is. We're never happy with failure rates. So I always think about how would your repeat customer like engage with this new experience? And they can be amazing and they can be engaging and they can feel like they're adding to the brand. But I always recall that this is a pilot for you. It is not a pilot for your client. And you should have that deep respect um, for them as you think through about the deployment.
Totally. So throughout your career, you've been pivotal in scaling operations and enhancing customer-centric digital offerings. What are some of the most effective strategies you've employed to revamp the GTM functions, and what impacts have these had on business growth?
Yeah, look, I think that's a great question. I think the first part of that is really about scale. And at scale, you really do get economic leverage, where your cost model is really growing slower than your revenue model. And you really have to think about what does that allow you to do. And I've always stared at customer centric digital offerings from an outside the US perspective. First, I've seen just amazing digital offerings. If you go down to Brazil with or Argentina in banking, video interactions with clients, or you go perhaps a little bit maybe into Southeast Asia and Thailand. There really are amazing deployments that are perhaps a little bit further ahead than where we are in the US, and they really do help you think through your business model in a really different way. I think scale brings lots of debates. It's a debate between centralized and decentralized is one debate. I think learning and development is a great example of that, which is all about how do you bring expertise to your team. And learning is at scale. Curriculum development should be centralized. Write the content once, and then maybe delivery is more custom, and that can be decentralized and more local. And you get to make these decisions on how you bring standardization with localization at scale in a very uniform manner. I think also at scale, it's how do you create a funding model to allow you to stay in front of demand versus catch up. And your digital offerings really allow you to go secure more than your fair share of market, um, potentially in a low cost, low investment level. And you'll see this in retail a lot. How do you go faster in countries? So in retail, you may have a city strategy. You want to be in highly dense urban centers, 4 or 5 stores in Sao Paulo or Shanghai or London. Um, but you ignore then the balance of the geographic footprint. And digital actually allows you to bring that experience that you've limited or concentrated in a high density urban area to full global coverage. So you get there first, you get there faster, you get more than your fair share of market, and you beat the competition. So I've seen some of those advantages to scale, and digital really allows you in cross-channel experiences just to go faster.
I couldn't agree more with you. I actually witnessed that firsthand here at Glassix. See, we've established our partners program where we are selling our product through resellers across the Latam area. And it's so true regarding the geographical location you mentioned regarding Brazil. Um, we definitely see, some of our clients are digital transformation consultants, and some of them are in charge of digital transformation within their organization. And we just see higher, like, it's not even in terms of higher returns, it's just a faster market. And it's a market that is just looking to deploy the latest technologies regardless of the verticals they're operating in. And the fact that you mentioned those locations, I was like, oh my god, it's really what's happening here. um that's just brilliant. So
Yeah, I think you're spot on, and I think when you see people with a really dedicated use case, you spoke earlier about our people, our companies moving too fast. There's a lot of pressure to deploy AI in companies, and I think you've got really two groupings, right? You've got people who've got a dedicated use case in whatever market they're in, and they say conversational AI can really enhance this experience in this way. And then you maybe have other people who just receive the memo and feel like they have to react to the memo. Um, and there isn't a full use case sitting behind the deployment to really create the transformation across whatever metric you choose, cost savings, promoter score, CSAT, or whatever. So I think there are interesting successes that we're going to see. And then I think there's going to be companies that take a little bit longer to learn their way into great use cases.
yeah, and while we're touching digital transformation and conversational AI, your role at Interactions LLC involved driving digital transformation with a focus on conversational AI, like many of our listeners. Can you share how this focus has enabled Fortune 500 companies to achieve significant advancement in customer service and operational efficiency?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll go back to what I mentioned a little bit earlier. Companies really in the customer service area typically think about great experience, potentially some labor savings, not to eliminate labor per se, but to actually create new roles, new services, their speed to market, or their speed to value. And one experience that I love is the utility industry. If you think about electric distribution, it may not be the most interesting thing in the world for people to think about, but when your lights don't work, you do think about it. And this is a really hard industry to differentiate in, when you're just distributing power. So I've seen companies in the Fortune 500 in the utility vertical who've really tried to differentiate what they bring uh, to clients. And they've identified, really three use cases that dominate their interactions with their clients. You either call a utility for a billing query, which can be super sensitive. You may want to start or stop a service. I just moved house, which is a really stressful event. Um, and you can now do that through conversational AI in a way that's super seamless. Or potentially there's an emergency. There could be a wildfire, hurricane, natural disasters. Unfortunately, we've seen on the increase. And how do you get updates at these very sensitive times to people in a human like way that feels that the company truly cares about you, and then allows you to continue that conversation. Does doesn't really feel like tree management. So I've seen in the Fortune 500, it opens up the possibilities for companies to speak with millions and billions of customers in ways that they just couldn't imagine, including, call it micro communities. And traditionally, the contact center has been limited by the number of seats, the number of people that they've had. Your ability to talk and interact with customers through whatever medium, whether it's voice, chat, SMS, or whatever you choose, is truly only limited by the scalability of your server rack. You can just get to more people in a truly more sensitive way. And I think that really helps people differentiate. What I found is when companies just focus on efficiency, they will get their efficiency goals, but they also make a deep trade-off that can hurt the customer experience. The great Fortune 500s are the ones who say, I want great net promoter score and I want to solve for efficiency. And when they do that, they actually create something magical. They'll rethink the experience, not just replicate, this was my old world. Let me do that old world with this new technology. And conversational AI allows you to create truly unique experiences in a way that were just limited by the designs and the infrastructure we had in the old days. And then it's also, you know, I can't underestimate the importance of having an amazing back office um, in creating these experiences. How do you tap into Zendesk? How do you tap into SAP, whatever your ERP, whatever your CRM may be? Because that's where the data sits, or it may sit in a data warehouse behind that. And how do you bring that data right up into the customer experience? So doing the front end is not easy, it's hard, but really integrating amazing data in a way that's secure, that's private, meaningful, accurate. I think that's truly amazing. And
That's a glorious.
companies,
That's
sorry,
that's
sorry,
actually that's a glorious point about how you actually connect in kind of a loop, if you wish, right? How you connect customer data from existing resources and systems, the likes of Zendesk or other ERPs. We have a lot of our customers doing that with HubSpot and Salesforce.
yeah,
Um, so they're able to kind of not just inject information coming from Glassix as their customer communication platform, but also pulling out information using the API from their existing CRMs. So, for example, they're able to identify the customers or identify needs before those arise. Um, so I think, yeah, conversational AI plays a huge part, and especially in this critical moments.
I found, look back a decade, and I think most companies kind of built a castle wall, and then they put a moat in front of it, and then they had a little drawbridge, and they made customers compete to find their spot on that drawbridge to come into the company. And that showed up in long wait times, queue times. And now, even in the world of data privacy, which most companies are honoring, respecting, doing amazing work on it, people expect you to know who they are. They want you to tell them, I know who you are. I know you've bought from us. And I want to bring that into the experience and recognize and acknowledge that. And to your point, you can only do that when you tap into your HubSpot, your Zendesk, or whatever your backend system is, and bring that alive into the experience. And that's at the consumer level as much as it is at the enterprise level.
That's so true. I want to go back. I know you mentioned while we started today's discussion about your work, about your exciting project. I know you're exploring carbon credit exchange through blockchain tokenization. How do you envision the intersection of emerging technologies like blockchain with customer experience strategies and environmentally focused initiatives?
Look, I think blockchain is absolutely going to be great. It's going to be great, and it's going to transform the customer experience. If you think about the greatest problem with carbon credits today, it's actually authenticity. Is this a real carbon credit that's going to a genuine project that's going to make a meaningful difference to the world, to climate? And it is really, really, really hard to find, um, a carbon credit that is truly authentic, that it's been validated by the government or the issuer. And this problem has existed for decades. Think about authenticity with luxury goods, Louis Vuitton, bags, Coach, go through the list. So I think this thinking that I'm talking about the carbon credits can go far beyond where we are. But imagine now you in this new world that you can buy a digital certificate issued by any government in the world, and you know that that is tied to a real project that's going to make a difference. I go to certain airlines today, and it's great to see in checkout the offer to buy a certificate to offset my carbon footprint. Great, but I don't know if they're charging me $8, $7, $6. What? Where do I go to find pricing transparency? What is the price of to offset a certain amount of your carbon footprint? So I think pricing transparency is absolutely critical, and then the ability to just bring it to the retail market. That imagine a Christmas gift offsetting your carbon footprint that a consumer could go buy today and share with their family and friends. You may not want to be on my Christmas list, but you know, they're the types of things that you can do through blockchain, and that validation and authenticity in a very liquid market, I think, will bring the opportunity for people who want to make a difference to the world in a really, really simple way. You can buy through a credit card without having to buy a flight to buy a carbon credit. You could buy a carbon credit when you're taking, your drive from here in San Jose up to Tahoe to enjoy ski or the lake in the summer. And they're the things that we hope that people could do.
No, totally. And from your extensive leadership roles, including your time as a chief customer officer at Tigo Energy and VP at eBay, what have been some key lessons in fostering team development and cross-functional collaboration to maximize customer satisfaction and retention?
It's interesting. The concept of team here was when I saw the question originally, I said, "Who is the team?" And the team can be an internal team, or in the case of Tigo, the experience was a blend of internal and external teams. But I'll back up for a second and I'll touch on that a little bit later. Customer experience in my mind can't be owned by an office of the chief customer office. Or, I don't think it can be seen as something additive. It can't be seen as this is one more thing you need to do on top of, let's just call it work. Um, Someone in the CCO needs to come up with initiatives, vet the initiatives, prioritize. There is an absolute need for that role, but it needs to become a natural part of how we work. So you don't want the rest of the company sitting by waiting for the memo to come from this office. It's got to be in something that everybody does together. Someone has to set the philosophy, and the teams have to agree how they will respond when they're tested. So imagine you have, unfortunately, a recession. Is the first thing that we will give up the customer experience? So everybody loves customer experience in a boom, but what services do you support when the economy is a little bit down? Do you pull back on marketing, or do you pull back on your experience? Um, and
You
so I
touched
always,
you
sorry, go on.
touched the nerve. You touched the nerve
Oh,
there.
right,
Please
yeah.
proceed.
It's so when I look at companies and I stare at them, and where the essence of team is really important, is you'll see one company is quoting, or one part of the company is saying, hey, we've got NPS of 60, 70, 80%. And then you'll see somebody else saying, well, we've got churn of 60%. Well, it's like, how is this connected? And the lack of collaboration, is very obvious when you see, high NPS and maybe low RFM, recency, frequency, monetary value, or CLV, or retention, or whatever the number you use. You know that customer experience is not built into the DNA, and people haven't fully embraced it. They're actually chasing their KPIs. Something is wrong. And it's very often the wrong question has been asked, or the wrong incentive structure has been put in place, that encourages people to chase a primary goal, and their secondary goal is net promoter score, or whatever. So the team is far more than just a group of people. It's far more than an office. It's far more than a memo. It's a philosophy. It's a sense of agreement. It's a compensation, incentive structure. It's cascading goals. It's about all of that. And at Tiger was really interesting. When I saw the word cross-functional, as I mentioned, it was that was really thought-provoking, because if you think about solar, and Tiger had some amazing solar installations. We're not too far from where you are over there in Tel Aviv. Huge deployments contributing to the grid. Solar is a really interesting space. So think about the relationship. Most solar comes with a 10 to 25-year warranty. So when you deploy solar, you're in that relationship for 10 to 25 years, right? A long time. And if you think about all the parties, you've got the customer, of course, you've got the manufacturer, you've got the installer, maybe you've got the contractor. And when it all goes right, that's awesome. But when it goes wrong, who takes responsibility? So when we look cross-functionally at Tigo, inside the company and outside the company, we said, who do we want to sit on the throne? We said, actually, the person who should sit on the throne is actually the installer. They are the interface between the solar installation success and the customer. So we built this entire ecosystem of responsibility to support the installer so they could be absolutely successful with their client. So the point is, collaboration can show up internally and with your partners in unique ways. But I think pick a priority. And it can be hard when you say, hey, we actually think the installer is more important than what we produce. That's hard for companies to acknowledge. But if the intention is to have a successful customer, I think you'll make the right decision. And if you do, and the customer has a great experience, they will love your brand.
Totally. And before we wrap up, and I thank you so much for joining us today and sharing these golden nuggets with us. I have to get your thoughts on this last question, Kyle. So, having achieved remarkable growth and customer engagement successes with lighter, unexpected moments or hobbies, do you turn to that help rejuvenate your innovative spirit and maintain a balanced perspective in such a demanding field?
Yeah, look, I think you got to find balance. I love jumping on my bike, just to get out there. I like to go through the hills around Tahoe, and the first 5 miles, you're thinking about what were the things you were doing at work and trying to solve a problem, and then 6, 7, 8, 9 miles into it, you're suddenly taking in the scenery, and you hit a hill, and the only thing you can focus on is climbing that hill. So that's a great way to clear your mind. And obviously, I love just getting out to my kids. All play soccer, so it's I'm a professional Uber driver on weekends to go watch these guys play in the Bay Area, and they love the game, and so um, you get to participate and watch them, and you also you get to see what's important.
I'm going to ask you, when are you planning to travel down to Miami to watch Lionel Messi's games or not?
Yeah, my next game, my next game is actually I'm going to watch Brazil play Colombia
Oh,
in
wow.
Copa de America, which is taking place here in the Bay Area. in July, and I think my son has got some tickets to go watch a game in Germany, the last 16 in the Euros.
Wow.
Um, and then there's, I think, a women's Bay Area FC game, which is a new women's league here, a new team in the Bay Area, and I think they've got a game coming up at home. So there's a few games we might see, but a quick story. Many years ago, used to do a lot of work in Barcelona, and a good friend of mine did some support with Barcelona FC, and they actually
Now,
got
now,
one of
we have,
Messi's signed.
now we have another. Now we have another thing in common. Please
Yeah.
proceed.
So he actually managed to get one of Messi's signed jerseys for my son. So we've
Wow.
got we've got one of those with Iniesta and a few others. So hopefully we'll get down to Miami. It's a little far away, but I'd love to see him. I think he's doing an awesome thing for sport and soccer in the U.S.
Yeah, I think he's the best we ever had and will ever have. We ever see.
Absolutely, absolutely, he's an amazing player and a gift for everyone to watch.
Brilliant. So, Kahal, I really want to thank you for joining us today. For our listeners, if you want to have more insights on how to enhance customer experience or the latest information about conversational I urge you to visit Kahal's LinkedIn profile. Kahal, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Rand. It was a pleasure to get to know you and talk to you, and best of luck for the future. Hopefully, we'll meet again.
Yeah, pleasure's all mine.